Genghis Khan's empire had a fatal weak spot nobody expected. The Mongol Empire stretches from Korea to Hungary, 12 million square miles, the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Its armies have never lost a major campaign. Its enemies are terrified. Its expansion seems unstoppable, and it's already dying. Not from military defeat, not from economic collapse, but from something no amount of conquest can fix. Physics, family, and the fact that a horse can only ride so far in a day. The Mongol Empire wasn't destroyed from the outside. It tore itself apart from within, and the cracks started appearing the moment Genghis Khan took his last breath. If you want to understand how the most powerful empire ever built contained the seeds of its own destruction from day one, subscribe now. Because this isn't a story about weakness. It's about how strength, when spread too far, becomes the very thing that kills you. Let's dive in. Genghis Khan dies during a campaign in Western Syria. He's approximately 65 years old. He spent 40 years building an empire through brilliance, brutality, and an almost supernatural ability to unite the Mongol tribes. But here's the problem. He built a system that only worked with him at the center. The Mongol Empire isn't a bureaucratic state like Rome or China. It's a confederation held together by personal loyalty to one man. Genghis rules through trusted generals, many of whom are relatives. Communication happens through the YAM system, a network of horse relay stations that can transmit messages across Asia in weeks rather than months. It's impressive, but it has a fatal flaw. When Genghis dies, his empire is so vast that his sons can't even gather for the funeral for months. Ogaday is in Mongolia. Chagatai is in Central Asia. Jochi's sons are on the Russian steppes. Tolui is with the main army in China. The empire is bigger than the speed of communication that holds it together. Genghis Khan knew this was coming. Before his death, he designated Ogaday as his successor, not his eldest son, not the most militarily successful, but the one he thought could hold the empire together. It almost works. Ogaday becomes Great Khan in 1229 after a 2-year delay while the family argues. He's a capable administrator and continues Mongol expansion into Europe and the Middle East. But the structural problem remains. The empire is divided into 4 khanates, one for each branch of Genghis's family. The Golden Horde in Russia, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, the Ilkhanate in Persia, and the Yuan dynasty in China and Mongolia. Each is theoretically subordinate to the Great Khan in Karakoram. But here's the reality. It takes 3 months to ride from Beijing to the Volga River. A message from the Great Khan to his cousin ruling Persia takes 6 weeks minimum. By the time orders arrive, the situation on the ground has changed. Local Khans start making decisions independently because waiting for approval from Karakoram means losing opportunities or facing disasters. The empire is too big for medieval communication technology to govern effectively. The second fatal weakness is cultural absorption. The Mongols are extraordinary at conquering. They're terrible at remaining Mongol. When Mongol armies conquer China, Persia, and Russia, they don't just rule these regions. They start adopting their cultures. It happens quickly and inevitably. In China, Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis, becomes more Chinese than Mongol. He moves the capital from Karakoram to Beijing. He adopts Chinese administrative systems, court rituals, and eventually, Chinese cultural values. He calls his dynasty the Yuan, positioning himself as a legitimate Chinese emperor, not a Mongol conqueror. In Persia, the Ilkhans convert to Islam in 1295. Once they do, they begin identifying with Persian culture and Islamic civilization rather than their Mongol heritage. They build mosques, patronize Persian poets, and adopt Persian court culture. In Russia, the Golden Horde becomes increasingly Turkic and Islamic, culturally distinct from the Mongols in China or Mongolia proper. Within 2 generations of Genghis Khan's death, his empire is fragmenting along cultural lines. The Khans in each region are becoming natives of their conquered territories rather than Mongols who happen to rule them. Let's talk about the pure logistics that made Mongol unity impossible. The Yam system was revolutionary for its time. Relay stations every 25 miles, fresh horses, rest stops. A message could travel 100 miles per day on this network. That's incredible for the 13th century. But consider the distances involved. From Karakorum in Mongolia to Sarai, the capital of the Golden Horde on the Volga, is roughly 2,500 miles. That's 25 days for a message to arrive if everything goes perfectly. Another 25 days for a reply. Any decision requiring consultation with the Great Khan takes nearly 2 months minimum. For anything happening on the western frontier of the empire, you're looking at a 3 to 4 month communication lag. Now imagine trying to coordinate military campaigns, resolve disputes between rival khans, or maintain any form of centralized control with those time delays. It's impossible. Compare this to Rome at its height. Rome's empire was roughly half the geographic size of the Mongol Empire. Yet Rome still struggled with communication delays and provincial independence. The Mongol Empire was twice as large and using 13th century technology. The empire was geometrically too big to function as a unified state. When Ögedei dies in 1241, the empire tears itself apart. His widow, Toragene, rules as regent for 5 years while rival factions maneuver. When her son Guyuk finally becomes Great Khan in 1246, he immediately clashes with his cousin Batu, Khan of the Golden Horde. They're preparing for civil war when Guyuk conveniently dies in 1248. The next succession is even messier. Munka, from Tolui's line, becomes Great Khan in 1251, but only after a bloody purge of rival claimants. When Munka dies in 1259, the empire fractures completely. Kublai Khan declares himself Great Khan and establishes the Yuan dynasty in China. His younger brother Arek Boke contests this and launches a 4-year civil war. Meanwhile, the Ilkhanate in Persia and the Golden Horde in Russia effectively declare independence. The Chagatai Khanate splinters into competing factions. By 1264, there is no Mongol Empire in any meaningful sense. There are 4 independent Mongol states that occasionally cooperate, but more often compete or fight each other. The succession system Genghis Khan established, where all male descendants had legitimate claims, combined with the communication distances involved, made this outcome inevitable. Here's the fascinating paradox. The Mongol Empire became more stable once it stopped pretending to be unified. The Golden Horde lasts until 1502. The Ilkhanate survives until 1335. The Yuan dynasty in China endures until 1368. The Chagatai Khanate, in various forms, persists into the 16th century. These successor states are durable because they're small enough to actually govern. They adapt to local conditions. They don't waste resources trying to maintain unity across distances that 13th century technology couldn't bridge. The Mongol Empire's fatal weakness wasn't that it was too weak. It was that it was too successful. It conquered so much territory so quickly that it exceeded the organizational capacity of any medieval state to govern effectively. Genghis Khan built the ultimate war machine. But war machines aren't built for peacetime administration across 12 million square miles with medieval communication technology. The Mongol Empire teaches us something uncomfortable. There are physical limits to how large a state can grow before it stops functioning as a unified entity. Rome learned this. Alexander's empire learned this. Every empire eventually confronts the relationship between size, communication speed, and administrative capacity. The Mongols conquered faster and farther than anyone in history. They were genuinely unstoppable on the battlefield. But they couldn't conquer distance itself. They couldn't make horses ride faster. They couldn't prevent their children from adopting the cultures they ruled. And they couldn't create a succession system that worked across 3 continents. The fatal weakness wasn't something their enemies exploited. It was built into the empire's DNA from the moment Genghis Khan rode beyond the steppes and kept going. Now I want to hear from you. If Genghis Khan had access to modern communication technology, telegraph, radio, internet, could the empire have stayed unified? Or were the cultural and succession issues too fundamental to overcome with better messaging? Drop your thoughts below. And if this made you rethink what strength actually means, share this with someone who thinks empires fall because they're defeated. Sometimes they fall because they win too much. The Mongols proved it.